Order. Questions for oral answer. Associate Professor Kenneth Goh.
Question 1, sir.
Mr. Speaker, may I have your permission to answer question 1 and 2 in today's order paper together?
Please go ahead.
My response will also address related oral and written questions on wealth inequality and wealth data filed by Mr. Yip Hon Weng, Mr. Gerald Giam and Mr. Louis Chua, scheduled for subsequent sittings. If members are satisfied with the response, they may wish to withdraw their questions after this session. Mr. Speaker, sir, over the past decade, real wages have risen across all income levels, with wage growth highest for lowest income workers. Income inequality has decreased. Social mobility between generations remains strong. These outcomes reflect sustained policies to uplift lower income workers and to foster inclusive growth, supported by a progressive system of taxes and transfers. Most countries face challenges in measuring wealth inequality accurately. Certain assets, such as unlisted businesses, private equity, and overseas assets, are inherently difficult to track and value. Financial confidentiality provisions further constrain data collection. We have made our best effort by combining survey data from the Household Expenditure Survey with administrative records. The survey captures information on assets such as bank deposits and unlisted assets, including overseas assets, and liabilities such as household arrears and bank loans. We augment this with administrative data on properties, CPF accounts, Singapore savings bonds, shares and securities held in central depository accounts and the CPF investment scheme special account, life insurance policies, balances in the post-secondary education account and EduSave accounts, and HDB-administered loans. Property values are estimated based on their fair market value. We have progressively improved the coverage and quality of wealth data captured in the Household Expenditure Survey. We will continue to study how data collection methods can be strengthened. Like many other advanced economies such as the UK, Japan, and Germany, we rely primarily on survey-based approaches. We have no plans at this point to seek additional legislative or administrative powers to require more granular asset disclosure solely for inequality measurement. This is our first compilation of the wealth Gini coefficient, and we do not have a historical series. We, however, intend to track this measure over time. The next cycle of the Household Expenditure Survey is planned for 2028, and we will consider whether additional indicators, which other members have suggested, can be provided. Members asked for further breakdowns of wealth inequality, such as by asset type, housing type, or age cohort. The Gini coefficient is measured at the household level and not at the individual level. Hence, we do not break it down by age cohorts. We do not compute Gini coefficients by asset type, as households can and do convert their wealth from one asset type to another. We also do not differentiate between public and private housing or between owner-occupied and non-owner-occupied housing in computing the wealth Gini, as this is a stock measure of net worth and not a measure of liquidity. We do not have sufficiently granular data at the moment to provide the breakdown between local and overseas holdings. Mr. Gerald Giam asked about wealth concentration at the top. The top 1% hold about 14% of total household wealth, while the top 5% holds about 33%. These levels are broadly comparable to advanced economies with similar wealth Gini coefficients. However, these estimates should be interpreted with caution due to sample size limitations and potential underreporting in survey responses at both ends of the distribution. Wealth inequality is higher than income inequality in all advanced economies, as wealth accumulates over the life cycle. In Singapore, a significant part of household wealth, especially among lower and middle income households, is held in owner-occupied housing and CPF savings. Our housing and CPF policies have enabled many Singaporeans to build their assets over time. This broad-based asset ownership helps to moderate inequality while strengthening long-term security and social stability. Mr. Yip and Mr. Giam asked whether we have considered other forms of wealth taxes beyond property tax. Our approach is to tax wealth in ways that are less susceptible to cross-border movement and tax planning while preserving competitiveness. And this is why we focus on less mobile assets like property and motor vehicles. These taxes are progressive, with higher value assets taxed at higher rates. We are mindful of intergenerational balance. Let me try that again. We are mindful of intergenerational balance. Younger households who are accumulating assets should not be unduly burdened. At the same time, higher value property owners should contribute more. For asset-rich but income-poor seniors, we provide deferral mechanisms for property tax payments to ease cash flow pressures. We fully agree with Ms. Mariam Jaafar on the need to sustain upward social mobility for current and future cohorts. Our strategy is to intervene early, provide support through life, and ensure wage progression. We have expanded access to affordable and quality preschool education to give children from all backgrounds a good start. Our schools provide a strong foundation with more support for those from disadvantaged households. Skills Future provides continuing learning opportunities for adults, including enhanced support for mid-career workers. The progressive wage model and workfare raise earnings and strengthen career pathways for lower-wage workers. For families facing complex challenges, Comlink Plus provides more intensive, coordinated support in partnership with community organizations. Overall, Singapore remains in a stronger position than many advanced economies, but we do not take this for granted. Tackling inequality and improving mobility requires sustained investment across generations. We will continue to review and update our fiscal measures to ensure that they remain effective and sustainable. We remain committed to ensuring every Singaporean can start well, progress in life, and share in our nation's success. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ms. Associate Professor Goh.
Thank you, Speaker. I thank the Minister for his response. I just have two questions. The first is whether there are more proximal indicators of inequality. I note that the Minister has said that the next survey will be conducted in 2028, and given the importance and severity of, well, not the severity, but the importance of wealth inequality and income inequality in our society, whether there are any attempts at capturing some of these more proximal indicators of inequality, both wealth and income. And my second question relates also back to the statistic. How is the Ministry looking at using this statistic? Are you looking at the trend, or are you looking at a threshold? And you know, does that subsequently warrant the kinds of actions that you would take? Thank you.
Mr. Siow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Wealth is notoriously hard to measure, particularly data on overseas assets and unlisted assets, and this is not unique to Singapore. The current estimates, both wealth as well as income, are our best effort, in line with best practices in other countries, and we have done so to our best effort computing both, or rather combining both survey data with administrative data, as I've explained in my speech. This is the first time we are measuring the wealth Gini coefficient, and we are open to improving it over time. We will take into account some of the suggestions that are made by members on what we can do. In terms of household income trends, we already publish that data regularly, annually, in the key household income trends report. But for the wealth Gini coefficient and wealth data, is dependent on the main source, which is the Household Expenditure Survey, which we do every 5 years. I think the next cycle is in 2028. And so when that data is obtained, we will try our best to put out something regularly. We intend to track this data, as I explained. In terms of what we would do with this data, I think the important part is to look at the trending. The absolute numbers are an indication of where we are relative to other countries, but the trending is also important, whether or not wealth Gini is going up or going down in the right direction. The enhanced data and methodology that we have used for both market income as well as, rather for income inequality as well as wealth inequality will improve our understanding of the states of inequality in Singapore, which will better help us develop more evidence-based and targeted policies to improve Singaporeans' lives. Thank you.
Ms. Mariam Jaffa.
Thank you, Minister, for your responses. You know, this is an issue very close to my heart. I have 3 SQs. First, are there any early indicators for cohorts in the 1990s and the 2000s of the data on where they stand today in terms of upward mobility? And does the government have any targets? Actually, you talked about trends, but do you have targets for what you would like it to be at in the next time you run the cycle? Secondly, in the bottom quartile, which has not actually moved in terms of upward mobility, what are the barriers, what are the persistent barriers that keep them there, and how are we evolving our policies for this? And then thirdly, as we think about AI and technological shifts that are reshaping jobs, how are we ensuring that children from lower income households are not disproportionately affected? I think I raised this point in my budget speech yesterday, and very keen to hear what the Minister is thinking about that. Thank you.
SMS Siow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the findings of the occasional paper indicate that the social outcomes in the past decade have been positive. I think it suggests that our strategy of combining inclusive economic growth with targeted and progressive support has had tangible impact. But we don't take these outcomes for granted. As our society ages and new generations come on board and the economy matures, structural pressures on inequality will naturally emerge, and sustaining mobility will become more challenging. So to Ms. Jaffar's question on younger cohorts, we do not yet have good data on younger Singaporeans because they're still in the early stages of their career and their earnings have not stabilized. But we are encouraged that the increasing proportion of younger Singaporeans have attained higher levels of education and skills, and that will put them, I think, in good stead to be able to do well in life. On her second question on the bottom quintile, the issues are more complex. The families in particular in the bottom quintile have multiple needs and need multiple support. And that's why we have been working on a package of various measures, including the enhancement of Compling Plus, which Prime Minister spoke about in his budget speech. And we are also working very hard to make sure that children in those households have a good start in life through preschool. And that is part of the Kids Start program, which we have initiated many years ago. The sustaining social mobility will indeed be a challenge. We will have to work extensively on families in the bottom quintile, knowing that the challenges to overcome are more complex and more difficult. As for AI and I suppose the current crop of Singaporeans and the concerns about how they will need to adapt, I think the key is really through ensuring our Singaporeans are skilled, are able to adapt quickly, take on the new jobs that will be created in this new economy. This will generate wage growth, and then hopefully then in that way they will be able to maintain a strong standard of living and continue to progress in life. It is a basket of pressures. I think we have to work hard to lean against the structural pressures that will happen as our economy matures and develops, so that Singaporeans can succeed regardless of background, and we have to remain vigilant and to refine our policies where needed so that we can remain socially mobile over the long term.
Mr. Yip Hong Wing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Minister for his reply. The focus of my SQ is on seniors. So for older Singaporeans who may own valuable property but have limited or no income, how does the ministry assess the impact of the higher property taxes on their cost of living pressures? I note the Minister have earlier mentioned that there are current initiatives, but will there be additional safeguards to ensure that the measures aimed at reducing wealth inequality do not unintentionally strain retirees? Thank you.
SMS Siow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We recognize the concerns of the group that Mr. Yip spoke about, the asset-rich and cash-poor retirees. Our property tax system currently is progressive. Investment properties and higher value properties are taxed higher, and homeowners with only one property are taxed lower, and they receive property tax rebates when necessary. But we nevertheless understand the concerns that individual property owners may face different financial circumstances, particularly on cash flow. So for asset-rich but income-poor seniors, we have deferral mechanisms for property tax payments to ease their cash flow pressures. For instance, eligible seniors and retirees can apply to pay via extended interest-free installments. Thank you.
Last SQ, Mr. Gerald Giam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I appreciate that MOF has published the wealth Gini coefficient. I hope that more data on wealth inequality will be published, as this could help us to craft policy solutions to reduce inequality in our country. I have two SQs. Has the ministry conducted a simulation on how much wealth Gini coefficient would be reduced if investment property equity were excluded, to isolate the impact of this type of equity on inequality? Secondly, given that wealth inequality is significantly higher than income inequality, is the government looking into ways to shift the tax burden away from work and income towards wealth to better support social mobility? I understand the SMS point just now that this can be tax planned away, but I would like to know if the government is trying and if it sees this as a priority.
SMS Siow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have included, first of all, property. In terms of methodology, we have treated them the same through the property values, because property value captures a broad range of different property characteristics, both whether it's owner-occupied or not, because they have it's a store of value. The wealth Gini coefficient is not a measure of liquidity; it's a measure of the stock of wealth. So that's the first point I would like to make. Second is that property, the way we have implemented it in Singapore is we have taken a broad-based approach to ensure that Singaporeans have broad asset ownership, whether it's through their flats or through whether it's through HDB flats. And as a result, we should not necessarily compare what we do in Singapore in terms of including housing with other countries. So it's a different metric. Whether or not we are going to have, we've done simulations on separating investment property from owner-occupied property. We've not done so. As I explained, it's because we have seen, we treat property as a store of wealth. It's, there is, well, there's no real need for us to do so. And that's something at the moment that we have not been doing. We will not do. On tax burden, whether or not we will shift from work to wealth taxation, I think we remain open to a broad approach. I think today we have an approach that works, that on the whole, the outcomes of the past decade in terms of our policies have been positive. We have been able to achieve real income growth. We have been able to achieve a decline in inequality. And we have been able to achieve a balance using both wealth taxation, as we explained, as well as income taxation. As our society ages and we move towards older society where there's more asset owning, that's something we can consider, whether or not in the shift, but we have to do this carefully so that we know that the outcomes that we want to achieve can be done so without too much social perturbation. Let me just, go back to the issue on investment property again so that I can explain that a little bit more clearly, because I have not done so very well. Sorry, let me try that again. I think what we do is that for household wealth, it does, we do include both liquid and illiquid assets, because this is in line with international guidelines. All property owners, including those who own HDB flats, can rent out their property for income and to sell it and keep the proceeds. So it is a store of wealth. And so how people manage it, how they activate, it is a store of wealth that they can use. And so there's no real need for us. It is not in international best practice for us to separate out investment versus non-investment properties, or owner-occupied versus non-owner-occupied properties. And this is in line with international best practice, and we will try to continue to do that, particularly since in Singapore, our approach is to, in fact, encourage owner-occupied occupation and to make sure that Singapore has broad-based ownership, particularly through the ownership of the HDB flats. Thank you.